All right, all right, all right. We have an interesting episode today. We're gonna be talking a lot of fielding. Haven't done this yet, so I'm excited for this guest. I have Dai Dai Otaka. He's a Yale baseball alum, and now you're going to go to Johns Hopkins, right, for your
Yep.
last year of school. And then
Yep.
was that you kind of exercising the year of eligibility because of the virus?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So going to Johns Hopkins and very productive player at Yale, great player there. And he's actually started, not recently, but he's been doing this. He's been posting a lot of videos on Twitter, and he gets a lot of attention because of his knowledge of infield play, certain drills and all that. So that's really what I want to discuss here. But before we get to that, first question I want to ask you is kind of playing at a school like Yale in the Ivy Leagues. What was that like, kind of managing your schoolwork and then also athletics?
Yeah. I actually get this question pretty frequently going to Yale whenever, I get on the Zoom calls. But, it's hard to compare to other schools because, I've only been at Yale so far. And I also went to a college prep high school, so it definitely prepared me pretty well, but definitely a very difficult task to maneuver both the academic and athletic realms with good time management skills. And so it just comes with a lot of trial and error and finding what ways to, study and get the best grades, but at the same time, put in as much time as you can for your athletic needs. So freshman year for me was pretty difficult, just trying to maneuver my way around the time management skills. But after the freshman fall, I was able to, kind of get my grasp with how the Ivy League system worked. Um, it's very different actually in terms of the baseball schedule when comparing it to ACC, SEC, or other Division One schools. In that our league games are doubleheaders on Saturdays and one game on Sunday, and we only play one midweek week, except for the first few weeks when we go down south and we play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so the rest of the days are full on academic school days.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely a lot tougher. We're also not allowed to take online classes during the season, so it's definitely
Oh,
a little
wow.
bit more difficult in that regard. But
Okay. Yeah, I actually didn't even know that you guys can't take online classes. That kind of sucks. But so I mentioned before that you were a senior at Yale. So then, what was this season like? Obviously, a lot of guys had to experience, their senior season being cut short. So I want to know what that was like for you, and then your decision-making process to go to Johns Hopkins and why there over other schools.
yeah, I mean, senior year, we definitely had a lot of big goals for the season. And when the season got canceled, for me, I was honestly in shock for a few weeks. Like, it didn't hit me first in
Yeah,
time.
I'm sure.
We were lucky enough to be able to play our last game, knowing that it was going to be our last game. They canceled the Ivy League season and Ivy League sports the day that we were supposed to play Jacksonville, and they let us play one more game. So that was nice. It was like a senior day of sorts.
Right.
Just going out and having fun. But at the end of the day, it was a very sad time. But it was, we were thankful that we were able to know that we were playing our last game. Some teams didn't get that experience, but we'll see what happens with Corona when we do go to when I do go to Johns Hopkins this fall.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we do get that season in the spring, but it'll be interesting for me to see. Regarding your question on the decision-making process, the biggest thing for me, I reached out to a lot of D1, D2, and D3, all levels of college uh, once I was granted the eligibility. And for me, the biggest thing was that Johns Hopkins coaching staff and the school itself was the best fit and seemed like they wanted me the most. And I definitely wanted to go somewhere, where they were excited to have me. And, that obviously it's a great academic school, just like Yale, blended with a very, very strong championship caliber team who made it to the College World Series and were number 3 in Division III baseball in 2019. And so
Yeah, they're
for
really
me, that was,
really good.
yeah, so that was a big part for me to want to go get a national championship ring at such a great school. And the coaching staff seems amazing. And from the mentors and friends that I've talked to, they thought that would be a great spot for me.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. And now, kind of the fun stuff I want to talk about here is I want to know is when you kind of started your whole posting the videos of fielding, whether it's like in-game stuff or drills. When did that start? And then where did you acquire all this knowledge on fielding? Like, was it just from maybe from one of your parents or coaches along the years? So what do you got there?
I started posting infield videos about 2 years ago, 2018. I've always loved infield play. I've always been passionate about it. But my former associate head coach at Yale and currently the field coordinator for the Minnesota Twins, Tucker Frawley, kind of encouraged me and pushed me to post some of my thoughts on Twitter before it got as big it is now. Um,
Right.
and so he was like, hey, maybe just get your name out there, start putting out your own content, your own thoughts and about infield play. And over time, it gained traction and I was able to create some honestly amazing relationships that I never thought would be fostered through, a fun social media site. And
Yeah.
so it's been a great learning experience for me to um, learn different aspects of the game, both, infield, hitting, pitching, anything in that regard, but also just building relationships with other people. So that's been awesome, and doing that has uh, kind of pushed me to look for a future in coaching after I'm done playing. So
Right.
yeah, it's been amazing the last couple of years being able to put out some content and getting this much um, traction from it.
Yeah.
Um, in with regards to acquiring the knowledge, for me, I've been fortunate enough to kind of be able to watch a lot of minor league players, some college players when I was younger, and I would emulate their motions and um, imitate all the movements that they did, but I never really had a rhyme or reason to why I did those movements. And so when I started writing these tweets or thinking about what to write about and what to post, it was very difficult because I could do the movements, I could, read a hop and go get that short hop, but I didn't know why I was doing it or how I was doing it or breaking it down in a way that could be accessible to younger players or even players that are high school, college level guys in a way that they could understand it and do it themselves.
Right.
And so um, I guess that passion for infield play kind of transferred from just being able to do it and just having those actions to being able to put into words and make it easier to understand. So it's been I've definitely taken a lot of ideas and jargon from Tucker Frawley and a lot of the other infield guys, but definitely trying to put my own twist on it as well.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job on it. Like I've even seen, like you said, you started about 2 years ago. I've seen like over the years, like guys I know either retweeting or liking it. So I've seen your stuff before, even before I wanted you to come on here. But definitely, you definitely have a great mind for it. And then so now, kind of taking your knowledge that you have and bringing it into the game. One thing I want to ask you, because there's really like a lot of scenarios and questions I could have came up with, for to ask you because of all the stuff, But one thing I'm curious is the communication between you and your other middle infielder, whether you're playing short or second. And I want to know what that's like, either before games or during games when you have to adjust in terms of shifts or double plays. So how do you like to communicate with your teammates in that regard?
Yeah, no, you bring up a really great point right there. So for me, before games even start, like just during the practices, way before the season's about to start, there's a few things I like to communicate with either the second baseman or the shortstop. Just honestly, all the infielders in general because we do move around so much with shifts. One of them is it's pretty quick is the sign for who's covering the bag. Open mouth, closed mouth, stuff like that.
Right.
Learning the different movements. Of who's covering the base on bunt and stuff like that, and just being able to do those quickly in a game. But the second thing is, and that's been really big for us at Yale the last couple of years has been learning the likes and dislikes of each infielder's feed location. So on double plays, so where they want the ball to be thrown
Yeah.
to make it the most comfortable, quickest, and easiest for them to turn the double play. So as a second baseman, for me, I like the throws on my right shoulder, but my freshman year when I played short, my second baseman preferred it on the left side of his body, so he could kind of go towards first base as he was catching the ball.
Yeah.
And so those different intricate aspects of the game go a long ways when turning something like a double play. And so that's something that I like to go over before games start, just to kind of practice those and in practice and get a grasp for the communication aspect that's um, you know typically on the field um, during the practice itself. And then in a game, like you said, it's all about like the shifting. If I move like one step or two steps because I see a tendency in the batter, or if the pitcher's throwing a little bit harder than usual and the guy's late, then I'll be like, hey, I'm a step over, so that
Right.
everyone else can move accordingly. Um,
Are
so it's
you
more,
also
yeah.
Are you also looking at the catcher signs too? Because I know a lot of guys, like to adjust whether it's off speed or fastball and like certain locations. So like, is that something that you take into consideration?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So there's a multitude of factors that go into positioning itself. Obviously, we have a shifting card that we look at for each batter, but I mean, everyone differs depending on the day. The pitchers, they sometimes they have really good locations. Sometimes they can't throw a strike as well, and they can't command as well. Hitters have different tendencies. Depending on the day. Sometimes they're a lot better hitting it oppo. Sometimes they're a little bit more pull happy. And so you have to change in that regard. And then again, like you said, off speed fastball location, stuff like that. So if your pitcher has good command, he's throwing the ball outside fastball, you might be, for me, like instead of moving too early, which is something that I used to do when I was younger, which
Right.
kind of gives away the location or the speed to the hitter, I would prep step into
The
where I
location.
would want to be. So when
Okay.
I would jump to my left or jump to my right, depending on the pitch.
Right.
So I wouldn't give it away as quickly, and that's actually been really, really helpful. Something I learned from Tucker Frawley to do
Okay.
um, to get that extra jump.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah,
That's
you're definitely right. The pitch signs, stuff like that, definitely help, and that's something that you definitely want to talk and communicate with your middle infielder, alerting them if a runner might steal, alerting them a lot of it because we shift so much. If when I was playing second base, there would be times where I'd be way in the hole in the 3-4 hole, and I'd have to tell the shortstop, "Hey, you got to throw from the third baseman on a double play." Or
yeah.
sometimes, even if I was far, if the first base runner was a little bit slower, I might be like, "Hey, I can get there. You cover that side of the field,"
Right.
type situation. So, yeah, lots of communication both in games and in practices.
Yeah, and I'm a catcher, so like there's a fine line to where you need to make your signs available, and then to where you can't make it too available, like especially the positioning of the runners and the bases. But as like because like this year was my freshman year of college, so now getting more advanced, I got to make sure that the middle guys can see like what the signs are in the location. So and then even like I know. I'm not sure if you guys do this, but kind of give them the signs like behind your backs at all, like to the outfielders, so they can adjust too. So
Mhm.
definitely, I'm starting to experience that more.
Yeah, what did you do when there was a runner on second with signs? Because I know like sometimes catchers would mix it up like with depending on the pitcher, and sometimes I have to be like, hey, like you got to tell me, you know, what the sign is so I can get a good read. What'd you
Right.
guys do?
Most of the time, we just did a second sign. Like that's what we would start off with, and then if we kind of saw, because like I would kind of keep my eye on the guy second base. If I kind of saw that he was making movements or he was picking it up, we would change it up too. So we would always start off with second sign, and then depending on how the game was going, we would make adjustments or not.
I see something that I learned while in college that was pretty cool. That's a little bit different from the second sign is chasing a certain finger. So a lot of things that we did was chase the wiggle or chase the two, right? So when you give the sign, you could give it the first sign, you could give it the third sign, you could give it whenever,
Right.
as long as you're chasing the two. That's what the sign is. That's a lot harder for other people to pick up and um, easier for the infielders to read as well.
Right.
But it is definitely more difficult on the catcher to give the signs, make sure you're
Yeah,
not. doubling up or anything like that.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. So like, so what is it like? Whatever sign follows, like the wiggle or the two, is the one that
Yeah.
will be
So
okay.
most of the time, I think the wiggle would be pretty good to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
And
little
so
easier.
what you would do is you'd be like 1, 2, 1, wiggle one, and that'd be a fastball,
Right.
right? Or like wiggle 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, this or something like that, and then it's a off-speed pitch. Um, Making sure that when you do the wiggle the second time, if you do end up doing it the second time, you do the same number
Yeah.
after it that you
Right.
want. But once you get the hang of it, it's a lot easier.
Okay.
So
I like that
yeah,
one actually. I haven't done that or I've never heard that one, but that's pretty good.
right. Yeah, I didn't know about it until I went to college, and I mean it's huge because when you play high school and then you get to college, like everyone's looking for the first or second sign or the last sign. I mean
Yeah.
that's the same thing as bunt coverages, right? They're gonna look at the first sign or the last sign or the second sign. So when you have, it's like an indicator. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, last question I have for you, more of like a fun question here, is what is your favorite play to make in a game? What and are you primarily a shortstop or second baseman?
I was a shortstop my freshman year, and then I partially tore my UCL. Start going into the sophomore season.
Okay.
So then they flipped me over to second baseman, and I've been there the last 3 years.
Okay. Well, so
Yep.
then you can give me both. So like kind of favorite play at short to make and favorite play at
Yeah.
second to make.
Yeah. Favorite play at short for me would be a ball in the 5-6 hole,
Yeah.
catching it backhanded and throwing it on the run, kind of fading away from first base.
Okay.
That's my favorite one. Just kind of lots of touch and feel to the throw itself. It's not about like how hard you can throw. It's about being able to keep running, but at the same time, um, getting that feel for command and locating that throw to first baseman. As a second baseman, I think there's nothing better than a double play as on the receiving end. So you're the guy that's turning the pivot
Right. Yeah. Of
at
course.
second base. It's so much fun. There's the thrill of the runner coming at you. Um, the third baseman or shortstop is going to give you the feed. I love that turn.
Right. And then so actually real quick, like why do you prefer the ball on your right hand side? Because when you said your teammate on his left, like in my mind, like that would make more sense because you kind of do have that momentum going towards first base. But why is that your preference?
Yeah, so for me, my hands are what's quicker than so for him, his feet were quicker in terms of being able to gain ground towards first base when he was throwing.
Yeah.
For me, I like to kind of just open up my left foot, and just be quick with my hands.
Okay.
And so that was what worked for me. And so having the ball on my right shoulder, I was able to just go like this and transfer very quickly and just throw it instead for him being led helped him move his feet towards first base because his transfer wasn't as fast. He was
Okay.
able to gain so much ground during that time and throw really hard to first base. So that's definitely something that goes into play, whether you're coaching or playing, just knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And for me as well, especially when there's a runner coming in hard, if because the third baseman and shortstop are right-handed, their balls are probably going to be naturally tailing from their lower arm slot.
Yeah.
Um, I would rather them aim at the right shoulder than it come, around my chest area than aim for my left shoulder and then be in the baseline and I'm getting ran over by the
Oh yeah, I get taken out.
by the runner. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little bit different with throws from the catcher though, right? Like on a steal,
Yeah.
um, if it's up the line, it's fine.
Right.
But yeah, just a lot of preferences.
Okay. Gotcha. So that's all I got for you. That was actually a lot of fun. You mentioned a lot of things that I did not know, but that was definitely great. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate
Oh,
it.
for sure. No, thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Signing off.